Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, I'm here today to cover a few points about gardening that I feel is really important to get out there, especially if you're new to gardening, but even if you've been doing it for a while. So I recently had somebody contact me, and I've only heard about it from this one person. I don't know how true it is. I haven't had a chance to go look it up. I can't even remember such things sometimes because I'm usually going from one email or comment to the next. But they were talking about how supposedly they're changing these zones. And I don't know, it wouldn't surprise me. But here's the thing, is that if you're new to gardening, the common mistake a lot of new gardeners make is they assume that zone means that you can grow the same thing as somebody else in the very same zone, no matter what part of the world they're from. And what you have to understand is that zone means very little. All it refers to is it's only in reference to any perennials that you're growing. So perennial being something that's going to keep coming back every year. Your fruit trees, your berries, a lot of your herbs, such as your oregano, mint, sage, and more, and how harsh your winter is. So if you have a really harsh winter, some things that can't handle that harsh winter will die during the winter and not come back. So that's what it's in reference to. They might grow great during the summertime, but can't handle the harsh winter. So that is important to know, but that's all zone is in reference to. So the one example I give quite often is that, and this is why I don't usually share my zone, because I don't want people assuming just because they're in the same zone as me that they're going to be able to grow the same things I do. Because I am here, if you're new to my channel, we are here in the wettest part of the wet side of Washington State, because Washington State has two sides, one that's dry, one that's wet. And we're in the wettest part of the wet side because we're right next to a rainforest. So, however, we are in the same zone as Deep South Homestead. Deep South Homestead in Mississippi, okay? Very, very, very different climate. This means that just because we're in the same zones, I cannot grow all the same stuff they do. I cannot have a garden going all year round like they do, not at least without having a heated greenhouse. But we can grow certain things that they cannot. And so what's important about when you're getting into gardening is finding out what works best for you in your area. The best thing to go by are to see what other people in your local area are growing. But even that is not going to be a definitive answer for what's going to work best for you. Because even like my neighbor over here, who's right behind us, and my neighbor over here, we're going to have varying results with the same things. A lot of that's going to depend on what side of the house we're growing things on, where we're growing it, our soil conditions, what kind of amendments we're using, and all of these are going to have a say. So when it really comes to knowing what's best for your garden, you can listen to all the master gardeners there are out there. You can listen to them all. You're still not going to have all the answers for you personally. And I just have always found I learn best by doing. If there's an herb I really want to grow, I'll try it. If I really want to grow it and it didn't do anything the first year, I'll try it again. Such as moringa is one I would like to grow because of all its great benefits. But, you know, that's one of those things where it's like, there are many herbs out there, many plants out there that have all kinds of great benefits that are just as good as moringa. So I can find other things to grow besides moringa. And I've tried growing it 3 different times. I've tried a few different varieties. And one year I finally got some to germinate, but that's as far as it went. And so I'm just like, there's many other great herbs and things I can grow. So I'm not that worried about it. But I really wanted to grow marshmallow, and I thought I could just direct seed it. This was years ago, and I tried it a few times, did nothing. It did nothing. It didn't germinate, or if it did, I never saw it and it died. So what I found for me was I'm like, okay, I'm going to try starting this in small pots and then put it in a greenhouse and see how well that does. I actually got some germination. I actually got some little plants. Once they got, about that tall, I moved them into bigger pots outside the greenhouse when it was warm enough. They did beautifully. I've had marshmallow ever since. And now I get little baby marshmallow plants coming up all over the place out there. And I love it, but it took me a few years of trial and error and practice to be able to finally get some and not only have it acclimated to our area. I mean, it should love it because it's a marshmallow. It's called that for a reason. And since we're very, very wet here, you'd think it would really like a lot of water, and it does. It does, but it also does like plenty of sun. I find even though I can grow it in shady areas, it never gets as big and as full as it does in the areas where it gets the most sun. And I've learned this from experience, because here's the other thing I do when I'm trying something new is I'll plant it in different areas. So if you're new to my channel, you might not realize that even though we have a couple other pieces of property, we're still doing almost all of our homesteading related stuff here on this shy 1/3 acre lot in a neighborhood. So that means I've got shady sides of the house. So that the backyard is the north side of the house. So I can't plant a lot of stuff up close to the house. It's going to get too much shade. But out there, farther out, no problem. There's plenty of stuff that like the south side, the front side of the house. So there's a lot of stuff that does way better out here because it gets a lot of sun right out here. Plus the things I plant up closer to the house that like more warmth do really well because they're getting the warmth radiating back from the house, especially on those few sunny days that we get. And I'm still learning all the time, especially because I'm always trying something new. Now this year is a weird year because I'm trying something new, but my new thing that I'm trying is giving all my garden areas a rest. But that doesn't mean I don't have a lot of perennials of herbs and fruits coming up all over the place. So nothing new is going into the garden areas this year. And if you want to know more information about why I'm doing this, I did a video, especially for those who want to come in and, mama bear me and try to tell me what I should and shouldn't do. Well, I've made a choice and I list off my reasons why. And I really felt led to do this. I think it's going to be good for the garden. It's going to be good for my faith, and it's going to be good for testing my preparedness. So that's it in a nutshell. But if you want more details, please go check out that video. And I just won't debate. People that want to come, email me and start some stranger, I don't even know who they are, and they want to start debating me about my personal choices. I'm just not going to get sucked into that. If you want to know why I'm doing it, here, you can watch this. This is not a debate for me. Anyway, so I am excited to see what's going to happen this year, though. It'll be interesting to see what's going to happen by just leaving everything be both this year and then next year when I start putting things in again. What's going to happen with my perennials? I'm letting the chickens just have full reign of all the garden areas all year this year. So they're going to have a great year this year because they get to go through everything, even through the spring and summer when I'm normally got things growing that I don't want them digging up. So they're going to have a fun year this year. But let me share a few other things. Like I'm going to share just from my own experience because that's all I have. I'm not a master gardener. I cannot tell you what's going to work best in your area because what I know is what I've learned here through my own experience. And so when you live in a very, very wet climate like we do, slugs are some of the biggest issues. Like everybody can get slugs pretty much anywhere because we got them on the east side of the mountain range over there where I grew up in Wenatchee. But not like we get here. We got big slugs over there, but not like we get here. It's not that we necessarily get big slugs. We do, but our biggest issue is all those little baby slugs that start coming up out of the ground. They're the ones that just devour everything. But guess what? My chickens love baby slugs. And they love those slug eggs, and they'll dig and they'll dig. And having chickens and allowing them to roam through their garden, even in the years I'm planting, they still have a good, sometimes as much as 9 months of certain areas that they get to roam, and they definitely have kept the slug population way down. So I don't have to do very much to care for them. But here's the other thing is that people will go, oh, you get slugs? Well, try putting beer in dishes and try using copper and try using eggshells and try using coffee grounds. Done it all. Done it all. Unless you live in an area that not only has such tenacious slugs, but so much rain that tends to wash away certain things that you put out to keep the slugs out, or push it into the ground, or to corrode certain things like copper and make it so that slugs don't care and they'll still crawl over it anyway. A lot of these things don't work. So you gotta, it took me years. In fact, there was a couple summers there I spent, before we got the chickens, I'd go out every single morning while it was still cool and everything was still very wet. Well, it is most of the time anyway, but especially in the morning. And I was picking up to 200 slugs off my baby slugs off of my plants every single morning. And that was how I kept them, at least the population, down. But every day I was doing that. I don't have to do that anymore. It's nice. It's nice. But that was something I had to learn, because of just the great amount, and realizing that all these methods that people just swear works great for them does not work for me, no matter how many different ways from Sunday I tried doing it. And then some other things I learned such as growing rosemary, which typically likes a dry, warm climate. Usually people who live in a dry, warm climate can grow just massive rosemary. Well, it's not that I couldn't grow the rosemary, it just never really did good. And sometimes different places I try to plant it, it would do good during the spring and summer, and then as soon as all the heavy rains came back in the fall, they just couldn't make it through, because we get heavy rains from fall clear through the first part of spring. We get rain all year round, but that's where we get the heaviest amount of rains. And my rosemary would drown. It just couldn't survive. So I kept trying because I really wanted to grow rosemary. And then found the best place to grow it was right up next to the house, where it could stay the warmest all year round, especially over on the south side. It loves it because when we do get any sun, it's getting as much sun it could possibly get right there, right up next to the house. It's also got the heat reflecting back from the house, and it's being more protected from all the rain that we get because of the eaves and being up next to the house. And obviously any water is going to drain out this way, away from the house, so its roots can stay fairly dry the way it prefers. And so now I've got way more rosemary than I could ever use. I mean, I still have some rosemary plants on the west side that are doing okay. They just don't get near as much sun as over on this side, because all the other things growing out there tend to shade them out. And so that's just an example of ways I was able to work around living in such a wet climate, a rainforest climate, and still be able to grow some things that prefer warmer, drier things. I mean, my thyme does really good over here as well. And then learning how to work in a small space. So no matter where you are, I know I have people that follow me that live in apartments, and they're doing what they can in their apartments. Some people have a little deck that they are putting their potted plants out and get as much sun as they can. Some people are utilizing window space. There are a lot of things you can do inside. I don't do a lot inside here because we have so few windows that get that kind of sun, enough sun for those things to grow. Only my aloe vera is in windows. And then I start my seeds in the living room where it's nice and warm in the late winter, early spring. And that's about it. We got a big south facing window, and that works for a while, but not for everything. I can't grow everything inside year round. So some other tips, if you're new to gardening or you have very, very limited space, I just had a video come out on, usually every 2 years I do a new video. I update it on a list of herbs to look into growing. I also have a video on homesteading in small spaces that I'll link to down below. But obviously the smaller your area, the smaller you got to start. And if you're just wanting to grow something, grow some culinary herbs. And the reason I say that first is because a lot of your culinary herbs can do well in a windowsill, especially if you have a south-facing window. And they can be not only for culinary uses to add flavor to your rice and beans if that's what you got stocked up on, but also can be used medicinally for antibiotics, antivirals, and so much more. And I do have videos in my playlist on the benefits of herbs and more, and I have a whole bunch of videos. There's like 90 videos or so in there where I break down the benefits and how you can use some of these different things. So I have one on rosemary, I have one on oregano, I have one on sage, I have one on thyme, and so much more. And so you might want to check those out and then decide and think about giving this a try. And then you might even be able to keep those herbs from dying back in the winter by growing them inside. And then they're always there to harvest and use. But that is my tip, is if you're going to try to grow anything, start with medicinal herbs, especially culinary herbs that can be dual purpose for medicine and for food. Not that you can't use your, because like valerian, you can eat valerian leaves, but, this might not be something you want to add to your salad. Same thing with feverfew. You can eat feverfew leaves, but I certainly wouldn't add those to my salad, even though they're great for digestive health. But they're just way too bitter to have in a salad. But I'll use dandelion greens though. And that's the other thing to consider is, like I said in that video on recommended herbs, is a lot of your things that grow wild, like your dandelion, your plantain, these things are edible and medicinal. And you might, if you don't have any space to just allow them grow, because maybe you don't have a yard at all, a lot of these things you can go find somewhere else. And we're all, depending on our areas around, we can all find something to forage for. And then amendments, this is another tip I wanted to throw out there, is that try to consider amendments for your garden, no matter how big or small it is, that you don't have to depend on buying them. Like, some people will run down to their local nursery and buy steer manure or whatever. You want to look at things that you can get for free. That's pretty much all, except for blood meal. I do like having that on hand, but if I didn't have it, I have chickens. But the blood meal is a supplement I like to put onto my blueberries since they're in pots. But, I'll throw it around on my grapes and some of my other berry plants, but I can do without the blood meal. See, now that I have chickens and we get plenty of fertilizer, we clean out their coop, I use that. I can put it on any of my acid soil loving plants. So potatoes, corn, berries. And so that's free. That's pretty much free material. And a lot of times, even though we do buy usually a bale of straw once every year, every other year to use with the chickens, that gets supplemented with any other things that we can get for free. So whether it be leaves that we collect from the neighbors when they're raking up their leaves, grass clippings from our other piece of property, because we have a lot of grass out there. Patrick will mow it down. We know it's all organic. We bring that home and we put that in our gardens. We put that in the chicken coop so that can become bedding. And then, the chickens are adding to it, and then that goes into our garden. There's so many different things that you can do that you can access for free. Last year, we were blessed. Patrick did some cleanup for a friend, taking out some trees, and they had a whole lot of wood chips and such that was great mulch. It was already partially broken down. And so they said, hey, you can just have this. He brought that home, and then we spread it out on all the gardens, got it for free. I mean, that doesn't happen every year, but even when that doesn't happen, we still have access to other free materials. So you're going to want to be looking at that kind of thing, especially if you're trying to save money, trying to find something more natural. You may not have access to some of these fertilizers you like to go buy, either because of price or they're just not available. So that's another tip I wanted to throw out there about that is, grass clippings are great. I've used grass clippings on all garden areas. Even though people say, oh, they're too acidic, I just lay them on top. They hold the moisture in, they break down, and I've even put them around my zucchini, and my zucchini loved it. And even though zucchini is not one of those things that you would think of like in a more acidic soil, like maybe your corn or your potatoes or your berries would, but I put it everywhere. Same thing with the leaves, everywhere. So anyway, those are some of the tips I just wanted to cover as you're looking into gardening or expanding your garden. Also know I'll still be putting out videos on the things that are going on, like the perennials that are growing. And we did put in a new, by the way, raspberry patch. That's one thing we did do new, because it was an area that had never been used for gardening. So we dug that up, and because we were given some raspberry starts, and it's like, oh, we need to put them somewhere. So we dug that up, put some raspberries in there, and then put the rest of them out at our other piece of property just down the road. So anyway, that's just my tips. That's my experience. That's what I have to share. But please, there's going to be plenty of gardeners out there from all over the world that have all different kinds of growing climates. If you have any special tips you've learned along the way, and just share what your climate is like. You don't have to share where you live if you don't want to. Don't just put zone. Make sure you explain what kind of climate you have. Is it very hot and dry all year round, or half the year? Is it rainforesty like us, whatever it is, share that so people understand, and it will give them a better idea what to go by than to just go by zones, which are, they're just way too general. They don't explain enough. And then that way people can pick up some tips from you as well. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.